They've done a lot of studies in neuroscience which show that it's very challenging for the mind to understand when you tell it not to do something. So if you're walking around saying don't drink, it's a lot easier for us to actually do that very thing.
I'm James Swanwick from the Alcohol Freedom Formula.
Former ESPN anchor, Australian investor, entrepreneur, and he is a coach who helps people overcome drinking problems and stay sober.
I wasn't what you might describe as an alcoholic. I didn't get a DUI, I didn't wake up in a ditch one day, I didn't get arrested. But in the end, I was just digesting poison, and it was compromising all areas of my life. Persuasion and influence is only 7% what you say and 93% how you say it.
Oh no, I can't, I shouldn't drink, I have to quit. I'm like, ugh.
Put a grin on your face, put your shoulders back, own the fact that you're not drinking, and have the most fun being alcohol free. And it is just a choice. It is a choice. I'm choosing a life of health, wealth, love, and happiness. Stopping drinking was really like the domino that knocked over all these other dominoes.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another podcast episode of Legacy and Billions. Today, I have the privilege of being here with my good friend, James Swanwick. He is a former ESPN anchor, Australian investor, entrepreneur, and he is a coach who helps people overcome drinking problems and stay sober. He's got a phenomenal story. I can't wait to dive into it in this story. So without further ado, James, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you, Chris. Great to be here.
Absolutely. I'm so glad that we had the chance to connect. Big shout out to Ulysses, my man, for the connection.
Yeah, me too.
Awesome. So James, I know that you've been through different parts in your career, different businesses, and ultimately you specialize in helping men and women potentially overcome alcoholism. But how did you get into that? Why don't you share with the beginning of the story, how it all started?
Yeah, well, I grew up in Australia and I was a socially acceptable drinker in that I would have 2 or 3 drinks most nights of the week, and on the weekends I would drink and often get drunk. And I did that for almost 2 decades, right up until my mid-30s. Now, to be clear, I wasn't what you might describe as an alcoholic. I didn't get a DUI, I didn't wake up in a ditch one day, I didn't get arrested. But my drinking really caught up with me by my mid-30s. I'd put on about 30 pounds, I was irritable, I wasn't sleeping great, I looked weathered. And then I stopped drinking and my life just completely transformed. Health, wealth, love, and happiness. So I had clarity, I had focus, I had energy, I had happiness. I dealt with childhood trauma through personal development programs. Stopping drinking was really like the domino that knocked over all these other dominoes, which gave me this beautiful health, wealth, love, and happiness. And then about 9 years ago, people just kept asking me, how are you going to all these Hollywood Hills parties, dancing on tables, having a wonderful time, and only drinking soda water, not drinking alcohol? And so I thought maybe I should just create a little business that helps people, not necessarily alcoholics, but people to have a better relationship with alcohol. Fast forward to today, and now we really specialize in helping business owners, executives, men and women, to have a better relationship with alcohol. Most of the time that means they stop drinking entirely, and sometimes they stop drinking for at least a few months, and then they return to modest levels of drinking, but certainly not a level that would compromise their life.
That's phenomenal. And so you mentioned that you were in Hollywood and you were going to these parties.
Yeah.
It takes a lot of willpower to be able to turn down the alcohol, especially when you're surrounded by beautiful women. There's social pressure. There's men. You want to create connections. Some people need liquid courage. I remember when I used to party in my early 20s, I always would get drunk because I didn't have that courage or confidence in myself. And I knew that if I had enough liquor in my system, I would just be carefree and do what I could have done while sober. I didn't have that confidence at that time. And so it was very hard for me to say no to stop drinking. Now, where I'm at in my life, I don't get drunk. If I do drink, it'll be at a special occasion, at a celebration. It'll be with somebody, and it'll be a special moment. And I'll have 1 drink, maybe 2, but that's enough. Because for me, I become so health conscious that when I put alcohol in my system, I just feel like I'm intoxicating my body. I can even have 2 glasses of wine sometimes and I'll wake up with a headache. And I'm just like, this stuff isn't good for your system at all. And so how were you able to be in the party and be having fun and resist the alcohol? Because I know a lot of people, they're like, man, without alcohol, life isn't fun. And so how do you get into that mindset where you don't need alcohol to have fun or have a good time and to resist the alcohol?
Look, it didn't really take tremendous willpower in the beginning, I must admit. There was social awkwardness, certainly, in that I would go out to this bar called Jones Bar on Santa Monica Boulevard in West Hollywood, and I would ordinarily, when I was drinking, go there a couple nights of the week with my friends Zach and Tom, and we'd have a couple drinks, a few drinks, we'd talk to some women. I was a single man at the time, and, you know, we'd have a good time. And then when I stopped drinking alcohol, we still went to the Jones Bar, but they were drinking and I wasn't. And one of my friends, Zach, went to the bar, came back, gave me a drink, which I thought was soda water. And as I went to sip it, he kind of looked at me and I looked at him, and he had this guilty look on his face. And I said, "Did you put vodka in this?" And he said, "Yeah, I did." And I was irritated, to be candid with you. And that was a really eye-opening experience for me, that even my good friends couldn't really accept the fact that I was choosing to be alcohol-free. Like, one of my great friends was slipping alcohol in my drink. I was like, wow, that's incredible. A couple of weeks later, I asked a woman out on a date, went to that same bar, and I got to the bar 15 minutes before she got there, and I said to the bartender, "When I order a vodka soda, can you just give me soda water, but just pretend like it's vodka soda, because I don't want my date to think that I'm not drinking?" And he said, "Sure, I got you." So my date turned up, we had a very nice evening, and I tricked her into believing that I was drinking alcohol. A few weeks later, it came out. I was out with her friends, we were at the Coachella Music Festival. One of her friends said, "Hey James, I'm going to the bar, can I get you a drink?" And I said, "Oh no thanks, I don't drink, I stopped drinking 2 months ago." And my date said, "That's not true, you were drinking on our first date." And I said, I was very sheepish. I was like, "Actually, I wasn't drinking." She said, "Wait, so you lied to me and you tricked me?" And I said, "Yeah." And then she ended up not dating me anymore from that point. So that was a really eye-opening experience. So a lot of folks worry that if they stop drinking alcohol, they're going to be dull, they're going to be boring. And more than that, they worry what their friends or people are going to say. "Oh, Chris must be an alcoholic if he's not drinking. Chris must have a problem." And that is where a lot of the nervousness or the anxiety comes from people who are contemplating not drinking. It's what will people think? And also, I'm going to have to retreat from society and not go out to parties and be dull and be boring because I'm choosing not to drink alcohol. Now, what I experienced in that first year and what I've been experiencing for the past 14 years, in fact, is the opposite is true. And that is, I have the most fun being alcohol-free. I'm clear, I'm focused, I'm energetic. The truth is, no one really cares if you stop drinking, if you choose to stop drinking. They only care about themselves, and they only care about whether you're fun to be around. Now, if you're going out into a Hollywood party, for example, and you're not drinking and you think that you're in pain because you're not drinking, then you're going to embody someone who's dull and in pain. Like, "Oh, I wish I could drink. Damn, I wish I could drink, but I can't because I said I wouldn't." Now everyone's going to feel that energy, and now they're going to be brought down by you. If you flip that on its head and instead you go to these parties and you're like, "I'm alcohol free, I'm going to own it, I'm going to have the most fun, look out, I'm going to get drunk on this soda water tonight," and you make fun of yourself about the fact that you're not drinking possibly, then you're embodying a good time. You're telling yourself, your unconscious, and you're telling your social group, it's okay to be alcohol free. And so I would just invite your listeners or your viewers, if you are contemplating being alcohol free, do a flipperoonie, which is go out and have the most fun being alcohol free. And it is just a choice. It is a choice.
Yeah, absolutely. I can resonate with that. I've been in parties where I decided not to drink and people will come up to me, "Hey, take a shot." And then I'm like, "No, I'm not drinking." They're like, "This guy's freaking weird. Why wouldn't he want to drink?" I'm like, "I don't have to drink to have fun." And so they're like, "Awkward." And so most people think they need a drink just to have fun, right? So how do you develop that within yourself? You start making jokes about it, you start just being fun, you start to claim that you're alcohol free. Like, how's the best way to go about that? Because for me, sometimes it turns awkward with people when I'm not drinking.
It feels awkward when you're not drinking, but it isn't awkward. There's a difference, right? I get that you're feeling awkwardness, right? But again, that is a choice, okay? As opposed to it's an awkward situation, which is describing it as something factual, right? The only thing that's going on in that situation is that there's a bunch of stuff that's going on. And then we are creating meaning to that situation. So if I was coaching you, I would invite you, before you went out to a social engagement where you know there's going to be alcohol, is you could do something like look in the mirror and just go, I'm going to have the most fun. I'm going to be the most engaged. I'm going to have a smile on my face. I'm going to introduce people. I'm going to connect people. And when someone offers me a drink, instead of me saying, oh, no, thanks, I don't drink, I'm going to say, yeah, I'd love one. Can you grab me a soda water? Is there any, cranberry juice? What have you got here that's alcohol free? And say it with confidence.
Yeah.
Now, if the person goes, oh, what, you don't want to drink? You go, no, actually, I've stopped. I'm on this health kick at the moment. It feels pretty good, but I'll drink whatever alcohol-free alternatives you got. Now, the way in which you've just said that, the person, the recipient of you saying that, they feel that energy, right? They feel, oh, Chris is confident. He's happy. He's good.
Yeah.
But where people get stuck, and where you might get stuck in that situation, is when you go, oh, no, I don't drink. No, I've stopped drinking. Can I have soda water? And the energy is completely different.
Yeah.
Now, they've done studies in neuroscience that shows that persuasion and influence is only 7% what you say and 93% how you say it. And the how you say it includes your stature, your tonality, your facial features, whether you're smiling, whether you've got a stony face like this, the pace of how you speak, whether you're up and whether you're down. 93% of influence is that. It's only 7% the actual words that come out of your mouth. So again, in that social situation, it doesn't matter what you say to explain why you're not drinking. What matters more is how you say it. So put a grin on your face, put your shoulders back, own the fact that you're not drinking, and have the most fun. And when you do that, that awkwardness that you described completely disappears.
Yeah, I could tell that part of mastering that is just priming yourself before. Like, hey, I'm going to have a good time. I'm going to connect people. I'm there to build relationships, and I'm there to be myself.
Yes.
And once you show up in that authentic version, you would just attract other people, and you connect, and you have fun, and you mingle.
Absolutely. And I would just say one more thing, because you said something interesting a few minutes ago when you said you only have a drink now on a special occasion. So I would invite you, and I would invite anyone watching or listening, to really challenge the notion that drinking attractively packaged poison, which is what alcohol is worthy of being described as a special occasion. In my view, the special occasion is outstanding health all the time. In my view, the special occasion is being alcohol-free and living an alcohol-free lifestyle, because being alcohol-free means you're clear, you're focused, you sleep well, you're happy, or at least you're not unhappy. Your stress and anxiety dissipates, your irritation dissipates, you get out of procrastination and into momentum. So this notion that I'll just have a drink on a special occasion, as if drinking poison is a special occasion, I would challenge that notion.
I want to stop you right there, because you know what? It's the social pressure that comes with it. Let's say we're going to a networking event and we are in there with some high-level entrepreneurs, some interesting business people want to connect, but everybody's drinking. It's like, oh, I got to be the one to drink in this special occasion. But really, I don't want to drink, because that's how I feel. I think that alcohol is toxic to the body, and it doesn't do anything but alter your consciousness. Why would you want your consciousness altered, especially when you're talking business, you're making a good first impression? And so that's something that I just realized that I was struggling with, was dealing with the social pressure of, hey, I don't want to be the only one not drinking. So it does influence you to some extent. And so how do you make that decision to cut it off?
Well, first of all, the pressure does not exist. You're creating the pressure. That you don't walk into a room and you're the only one not drinking, everyone else is drinking, and suddenly pressure comes down from the sky. You're creating that feeling of pressure. The pressure doesn't exist. It's not there, right? You're just going, oh, okay, there's pressure. I'm feeling pressured to drink. People might encourage you to drink. People might invite you to have a drink. But this notion that there's pressure to drink, I would really challenge that. Second thing is, again, people don't care whether you drink or you don't drink. And I know this because I haven't drunk in 14 years. No one would ever accuse me of being dull and boring. And I go to networking dinners. I've networked with billionaires. I've gone to masterminds. I've gone to Hollywood Hills parties. I went to the Playboy Mansion as a drinker. I went to the Playboy Mansion as a non-drinker. And as a non-drinker, I had a vastly superior, more fun time. And so you walk in there and you just like, No, thanks, I'm good. I'm drinking soda water. No, I don't drink. Haven't drunk in 5 years. Haven't drunk in 12 years. Haven't drunk in 3 months. I'm doing an experiment on my body to see how it feels, but I'm good. That's it. Again, it's just embodying that feeling and understanding that even though someone might be inviting you to have a drink or encouraging you to have a drink, there's no pressure other than what you're creating yourself. You can just be confident enough to say, no thanks, I'm good. I'm going to have this mocktail. I'm going to have this alcohol-free beer. There's so many alcohol-free alternatives on the market now.
That's so well said. Thank you for sharing that. And so for people that are really struggling with alcohol, you've worked with many of them. And so what are the common patterns that you see? Why do people go to drink in the first place? Like, why put that into your system?
Well, there's a few different answers to that question. The first one is cultural conditioning. Okay, so most of us growing up, we saw our parents or we saw adults drinking alcohol, and they would say to us, oh no, you can't drink that, little Chris or little James. You can drink that when you're older. Now what they're doing is they are unknowingly creating a thought and a belief in a child's mind that, drinking alcohol is something that adults get to do. It's like a rite of passage. One day I'll be able to drink. And so now we go through our adolescence, we go through our teens, and we're waiting for that opportunity to be able to do what the adults have been doing for years, which is drink alcohol. So that's the cultural conditioning I'm referring to. And then what happens? We get into the last year of high school, get into college, and now there are smiling assassins everywhere. And a smiling assassin is someone who's drinking alcohol or offering you alcohol with a big smile on their face. It's the waiter or the waitress. So when you sit down at a restaurant and they say, hello sir, my name is John, I'll be your waiter or server for the evening. Can I get you started with a cocktail? Would you like something from the wine list? And they're very polite and they're smiling, but they're offering you attractively packaged poison. It's the friends.
I've never heard anybody describe it like that, and I absolutely love it. Attractively packaged poison. That is so good.
And that's all it is.
Yeah.
Alcohol is straight poison. That's all it is. It's just toxins in a very charming, very attractive bottle. Your friends and fraternities in college, they've all got smiles on their face. They go out, they have parties. When you go out and you go and join the workforce, everyone's like, shall we go for some Friday night drinks? Yeah, let's get some Friday night drinks. And then you go to the bar and everyone's smiling as they're drinking their attractively packaged poison. So there are smiling assassins everywhere. The cultural conditioning has been going on for years at this stage, decades. And it just continues. And then you see Super Bowl commercials with Coors and Bud Light, and they're funny, and you see guys goofing around as they're drinking their Coors. You see messaging throughout life on billboards and on magazine advertising and on the internet about romance. You have to have a bottle of red wine to create romance with the candlelit dinner and by the sunset. Then you look on people's Instagram profiles and you see people are holding their drink, whether it's a beer or a wine or champagne glass, like a prop, as if this is a symbol of the good life. You see it all the time. People even say, hey, let's get a photo. And what do people do? If they're not holding a drink, they say, hang on a second, and they pick up their drink just so they can hold it in the photo.
I'm so guilty of that. I used to do that back in the day.
Just to portray to the viewer of this photo, Chris is living the good life because he's holding this glass of attractively packaged poison. It's all nonsensical. So it's cultural conditioning. It's been perpetuated over years and decades. The second part of that answer, of my answer to your question, is most people are drinking alcohol, I would submit, because they don't feel comfortable being present with themselves. In other words, the only reason that we scroll through our phones, or we become a shopaholic, or we watch porn, or we become a love addict, or we overeat, is because we don't feel comfortable just being by ourselves and being who we are and being present. All of those things is just a distraction and gives us temporary and illusionary relief from an inability to be with ourselves. That's all it is. When we increasingly become more comfortable with ourselves, more self-assured, And to get there takes personal development work. It's a journey. Then we're not craving something to relieve us of the tension of that discomfort. Does that make sense?
Yes. Yes. And so what practices have been effective in helping you and your clients and the people that you've helped stay grounded and present? I'm sure you do some meditations. What kind of practices do you do?
Yeah.
That you would encourage to some of the people watching. Maybe they're like, oh, this is a different perspective, and they're interested in learning more.
Yeah, there's a few things. So one of them is a concept which I refer to as live a life of appreciation instead of expectation. And what that means is be grateful. And the way that we have our clients practice gratitude is by doing this exercise that I call the daily 20. And the daily 20 is literally writing down 20 things that you are grateful for every morning. And I invite people to do that before they turn on their phone and start scrolling. So they wake up, they might use the bathroom, have a drink of water, and then I invite them to sit down, get a journal or a notepad, and write down 1 through 20, and then spend 5 to 10 minutes writing down 20 things that they are grateful for. Now, what this does is it activates something in our brain called the RAS, which is the reticular activating system. And what it does is that we're now looking, what am I grateful for? Well, I'm grateful that I woke up in this bed. I'm grateful for my friends. I'm grateful for the business that I have. I'm grateful for that challenging conversation that turned out okay last night. I'm grateful for the friends that I have, etc., etc. You're writing this down. It's forcing the reticular activating system to go to work. And what it does is that throughout the remainder of that day, your mind starts to see evidence of more things to be grateful for. In other words, it puts you in a more positive mindset and a less negative mindset. And all of the studies show that when we are feeling good about our life, when we're feeling good about the future, when we're living a life of appreciation and not expectation, it lowers our stress, it lowers our anxiety. And what happens when we lower stress and anxiety? It lowers our cravings for something to relieve us of stress and anxiety. In this case, alcohol, or shopping, or food, or porn, or love, or whatever your vice is. So just doing that one practice each day, 20 things that you are grateful for, is enough in many cases to get you out of whatever addictions you have. A couple of other things we do, we encourage people to get outside and get morning sunlight, take off your shoes, walk along the grass, on the earth, because the earth has this energetic pulse to it called the Schumann resonance. And studies have shown that if we have our bare feet on the sand or the grass, whatever it is, it reduces stress and anxiety, which again reduces our cravings for alcohol. Being in a like-minded community is huge. So it's really taking a look at our existing friends network. And if our existing friends network are big drinkers, smokers, addicts, they've got high anxiety and high stress, then we're inviting them to really do a stock take on the friends network and gravitate towards a network of friends and associates and acquaintances who are health conscious, who practice conscious communication, who are doing personal development work, who are noticing their nutrition, who are into entrepreneurship, but are more health conscious. And getting in those communities creates camaraderie, which creates accountability, which creates community, which creates breakthrough. And so they're just a few of the things that we do to get people out of seeking something to relieve themselves of that tension.
This is phenomenal, James. I really love the practices that you've implemented to help people create change, and the effects of that are just endless, I'm sure. Improvement in quality of life, deepening their relationships, their connections with themselves, with others, more presence, discipline, better health. I mean, it's endless amount of benefits, I'm sure. And so what was that turning point for you where you said, I'm drawing the line in the sand and I'm not drinking alcohol anymore? What was that like?
Yeah, so in 2010, I was 35 years old, and I was in Austin, Texas at that year's annual South by Southwest festival, and I went out to an industry party with an open bar.
So you're a big party guy, a big festival. You mentioned Coachella, Hollywood Hills. That means you were in the scene.
I was living in Hollywood, California. I mean, I would go to the Golden Globes after parties, the Oscars after parties. I went to Elton John's Oscars party, for example. There were open bars. I went to MTV movie parties. I mean, Hollywood, it's like the den of inequity, right?
And how did you get connected with those individuals?
When I first moved to the States, I became a journalist, and I interviewed movie stars, and I interviewed, rock icons. And so for 10 years, I interviewed folks like Brad Pitt, Angelina Jolie, Tom Cruise, John Bon Jovi, Rihanna. And
those are legends.
Yeah, so I got a lot of access to all of the who's who of the entertainment world. And so because I was doing that, I got invited to parties, I got access, and I found myself up in the Hollywood Hills, open bars, parties, or everything that you might imagine. And it was fun. It was a heck of a lot of fun. And I partook in lots of drinking, and I partied, and it was great. Until it wasn't. Until 2010, when I went to that year's South by Southwest festival. I had 2 Bombay Sapphire gin and tonics at a Friday night party. I went back to my hotel on the outskirts of Austin, went to sleep, and when I woke up the next morning, I looked in the mirror. I could taste the gin on my tongue from the night before. I looked weathered. I had some fat rolls around my stomach. I was probably 30 pounds overweight. My skin was weathered, and I just felt blah. And what blah means is mediocre. I wasn't sleeping well, I was irritable, I was procrastinating on lots of things, and I just was like, blah. I went next door to an IHOP, an International House of Pancakes, and I sat there, and I was about to order these pancakes, all you can eat, and I looked out the window, and I thought, what am I doing in an IHOP? And that was the moment. So I looked out the window, and I said, wow, you're 35 years old, James. You're tired, you're irritable, you're uncomfortable, you're overweight. I wasn't rock bottom, to be clear. I wasn't rock bottom, but I was just average. And so I said to myself, I'm going to quit drinking just for 30 days as an experiment. And that's what I did. I stopped drinking for 30 days. I lost 13 pounds of fat just from stopping drinking. Wow. I had clarity, focus, and energy. I had an opportunity to audition to become a Sportscenter anchor on ESPN. And because I had that drive and that clarity, I went for it. I did everything I could to get that job, and to my bewilderment, they gave me the job, and I ended up hosting SportsCenter on ESPN for the next 2 years, and I credit being alcohol-free to helping me get that job. And I just loved how I felt after 30 days. I thought, I'll just see if I can go 50 days. Then I got to 50 days, then I met this wonderful woman. She was very high energy, high vibration. She wasn't a big drinker. And so she really admired me for not drinking. And I thought, wow, this is amazing. I thought that women wanted me to have some drinks to create romance, but she was actually admiring me being a man who actually was choosing not to drink. And I thought, well, this is interesting. And then I just thought, well, this is pretty damn good. Then I got to 2011, which was a year later, and I was back at the same South by Southwest festival. And I went up to the Luster Pearl Bar in Rainey Street in downtown Austin. And I ordered what was supposed to be a celebratory beer, just to celebrate 1 year alcohol-free. And again, isn't it crazy that I wanted to celebrate a year alcohol-free by drinking the very thing that I'd actually stopped consuming?
How do they
It's crazy.
Us to do these things, the irony in that, they just want us to fall back into the trap. It's like, oh, hey, here you go.
Again, I was associating the alcohol as the pleasure, and the not drinking of the alcohol is the pain. Anyway, I ordered this beer. It was a Bud Light, and I went to put it to my lips. And just at the last moment, I thought, hang on a second. In 1 year, I've got my dream job hosting arguably the most iconic sports TV news show in the world, in SportsCenter and ESPN. I have this amazing romantic relationship. I'd lost 30 pounds in that year. I looked good, was sleeping good, felt great, was getting compliments from people about my nature, like, oh, he's a nice person, he's a good guy. And I thought, okay, I think I might just keep going. And so I put the beer down. I said to the bartender, here, you can take it back. I tipped him. I walked out, and I haven't picked up an alcoholic drink since. And that was in 2011, but I stopped in 2010. And I can tell you now that I've had a life with alcohol and a life without, and without is far superior.
Let's freaking go, man. Congratulations. That is so awesome. Yeah. Guys, this is your sign right now. If you're drinking or have a drinking problem, or you're not where you want to be in life right now, it's time to cut the vices. It's time to cut the negative people that are around you. It's time to cut off the alcohol and start improving your life And James, I admire for you to be able to do that, because I still have friends from my childhood, from college, from high school, that I don't get to see often, because every single time, if we were to do something, they're at a bar, they're drinking, and I'm just not at that stage in my life where I want to surround myself with people like that. And so I'm curious, because, man, you were able to really cut off this vice. And so for you personally, I'm curious, why were you drinking at these parties? Was it part of the social conditioning? Did you ever feel like you weren't enough? Did you have some childhood trauma? Did you think that you needed to drink to have more women? Like, what was your reason for drinking? Or you just wanted to have fun?
All of those things.
Yeah.
And one big important thing, which I came to realize years later, which was I was an Australian living in America, in Hollywood, and the Americans had this association that an Australian, big drinker, larrikin, fun guy. And so I gave them that character. So every time I would go out and I would drink alcohol at these parties, and I'd get drunk and I'd have a fun time, and I said, let's catch up for a few drinks, ha 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 ha. The Americans are like, oh, like Crocodile Dundee, you're the big drinking Aussie guy. I was like, yeah, that's right. And so that's what I gave them. So I had this reinforcement from society.
You had to build a societal identity around it.
I built this identity. I'm the fun, loving Aussie larrikin, like Crocodile Dundee, and the Americans loved it. I mean, they lapped it up. They're like, oh, that crazy Aussie James, oh, he's a big drinker. And I was like, oh, yeah, that's me. So I was drinking to present them with a character that they gave me assurance was welcome to them. They wanted that. They wanted me to be the Australian larrikin, and that's what I did. So that was a big reason. And then in addition, all those things that you referenced, cultural conditioning. There was an open bar. I looked at alcohol as a reward, as a gift. I'm going to these Hollywood parties and there's free booze. I'm like, oh, let's go. I'm going to drink the free booze because that's a gift. That's a reward. That's pleasure. Smiling assassins everywhere, smiling as they offer you drinks. You know, people were being very nice. Can I get you a drink? Would you like a drink? Shall we catch up with some drinks? They're very nice about it. But in the end, I was just digesting poison, and it was compromising all areas of my life.
So I caught something super powerful. You are a non-alcoholic drinker. And so the only way to create permanent change with anything that you want to do in life is by shifting an identity. You don't identify yourself as an alcoholic. So most people, they will say, I'm 100 days sober, 2 years sober, and they're counting down the days. But what happens, and what I've seen, I learned this from Tony Robbins, is that people that will then give in one day because they're counting the days until they fall back again. But the only way to escape that trap is by having a new identity. It's like, I'm not an alcoholic drinker. I don't drink alcohol. Alcohol is not part of me. And you did that. And so you've been sober now for how many years?
14 years.
14 years. And how you've been communicating, it's like, I'm not a drinker.
There's a couple things in what you said there as well, which I kind of have changed around a little bit. I've noticed you and society use the word sober and sobriety. To be clear, in my organization, Alcohol-Free Lifestyle, which is what it's called, we don't use the word sober, we don't use the word sobriety at all. Because in our view, what you are telling yourself is, oh, under normal circumstances, I would choose to drink alcohol, but I can't, so I've got to be sober. I'm now 2 years sober, which means, you know, I would drink alcohol, but I can't. Because when I do, it's just bad things happen. So instead, what we do in our organization is we use the term alcohol-free. Now, with sober, you're saying no to something. I would drink, but I can't, so I'm saying no to alcohol. But with alcohol-free, you're choosing a lifestyle. You're choosing something over here. They've done a lot of studies in neuroscience which show that it's very challenging for the mind to understand when you tell it not to do something. So if you're walking around saying, don't drink, I need to stop, I have to quit, I've got to be sober, I'm sober, you're telling the mind what not to do. And what ends up happening is that because we're telling the mind what not to do, it's a lot easier for us to actually do that very thing. Yeah. I'll use an analogy. Ever been skiing, you know, like in the snow? Yeah. You're going down the hill and there's trees on the left and you're saying, don't go to the left, don't go into those trees, and that you find your body starting to move towards the trees. Why? Because you're telling yourself, don't go to the trees, but then you go to the trees. Yeah. It's because you're focusing on the trees. Likewise with the terms sobriety and sober and I need to quit, I have to stop, you're focusing on the alcohol. And so the more you focus on the alcohol, the likelier you are to end up consuming the alcohol. As opposed to this way, this is what I'm choosing. I'm choosing a life of health, wealth, love, and happiness. I'm not saying no to alcohol. I'm saying yes to an alcohol-free lifestyle. And the mind understands that. It's a lot simpler. It's a lot more effective to tell yourself what to do. It's like, okay, do this, got it, I'm going to do this. So how's it that would show up in your mind or in your inner voice when you're going to a restaurant or a bar or that social situation you were referencing earlier, is you walk in and instead of saying, don't drink tonight, can't drink, say no to the invitations, you say to yourself, I easily only drink soda water, ice, and a piece of lime tonight. You walk into the bar and you go straight up to the bar and you say, hello, Mr. Barman, I'll grab a soda water with a splash of cranberry, thanks. And you just say what you're going to do. There's no like, don't drink, shouldn't drink. It's just go up to the bar. I'll take a soda water. I'll take an alcohol-free beer. I'll take whatever it is. That's choosing a lifestyle as opposed to saying no to something.
Yeah, I love that. That was a great way of showing me what it's like to be alcohol-free. And that was very, very well said. I had never actually heard of it, this perspective before, so I appreciate you sharing that. And so what is your mission over the next 10 years? You want to help, you help both men and women?
We help both men and women, mostly entrepreneurs and executives. That's really the niche that we've honed down on. You asked me what my mission is. Well, my mission is to present a modality that's different from traditional modalities like AA or rehab. Now, I get some criticism on the online world from people who are in AA and who go to AA because I point out that repeated studies have demonstrated that AA's actual success rate is 7%.
70?
7%. Single digits, 7. Which means 93% of people who go to an AA meeting do not achieve long-term success. And the success is when you look at it as long-term power over their drinking. Rehabs as well have a huge repeat customer rate. So people go to rehab, they come out, they drink again, they go back to rehab. It's like they go to rehab, they come out, they go back to rehab, they come out, they go back again. A lot of studies say that they have about a 5% success rate of creating permanent change after you've been to rehab. Now, the University of Washington did a scientific study on our stop drinking process in the first quarter of 2023. And the results came back at the end of 2023, which showed a 98% reduction in drinking through going through our 90-day stop drinking process. Now, that's not a straight comparison. You can't say, well, ours is 98% success and AA's is only 7, because ours was a 90-day container and not a year long. And also what they were studying was the reduction in drinking, and the reduction was 98%. But I can say this anecdotally. We've put through almost 1,000 clients now through our 90-day stop drinking process. And I would say 90% of the clients who've gone through have been completely alcohol-free for at least 90 consecutive days. And of those folks who we've checked in with afterwards, I would say probably 65% of them are still alcohol-free years later, a year later, 2 years later, 5 years later. And of those who have shared that they have returned to drinking, they say that they now only drink modestly and that alcohol no longer has power over them. They have power over alcohol. So you asked me what's my mission in the next 10 years. My mission is to really create AFL, which is the name of our company, Alcohol Free Lifestyle, really present that as an alternative to the traditional modalities of AA and rehab. In my view, our way is significantly more effective. It's not the only way. There are many ways. And for those who've done AA and they've succeeded with it, I say keep doing it. If that works for you, keep doing it. If rehab has worked for you, keep doing it. But I want to challenge the notion that the only ways to stop drinking is AA, rehab, or brute willpower and white knuckling it. No, there are other ways using neuroscience, health, nutrition, exercise, sunlight, sleep optimization, having a great friend network around you, being positive, practicing appreciation instead of expectation. All of those things in my view, and certainly what I've experienced over the years, is far more effective than those traditional modalities.
I love it. And James, once you're in heaven, you're no longer on this earth, right? How do you want people to remember you?
As someone who inspired people to make positive change in their life, I'm not going to be the reason that people do that, but I would like to be one of the reasons people did that. I'd like people to increasingly live an alcohol-free lifestyle. And for many listeners or viewers of this conversation we're having now, that may mean reducing drinking. It might be too big a concept for someone to say, I'm never going to drink again. And I get that. Again, the cultural conditioning is real. But if I can influence someone to at least explore their relationship with alcohol, to reduce it at the very least, then I know that they are going to have a less compromised lifestyle.
I love it. And James, for the audience that they've been inspired by your journey and your story and they want to live an alcohol-free lifestyle, where can they find you?
The website is alcoholfreelifestyle.com. You can find me on social media at James Swanwick. I do a lot of alcohol-free tips and advice there on the social media. And we have a podcast in Apple Podcasts and on Spotify, which is called Alcohol Free Lifestyle, which is the name of our organization.
Lovely. Well, thank you so much for bringing on here and sharing your insights. And I am so glad to share with the world what they can do to become alcohol-free, guys. You heard it from James.
Thank you
so much
me.
for coming.
Appreciate it.
Yes, sir.